I promised that I would endeavor for us to meet at least twice a year to have a conversation about our nation and how the government is doing. I believe this week meets the requirements of this promise and has the added advantage of marking the first anniversary of my becoming President of our Republic. I do not intend to engage in self-adulation or self-flagellation for that matter. I shall therefore not be assigning grades or marks to myself or my government. An examinee does not mark his or her own script. I leave that either to the self-serving pronouncements of vainglorious politicians or to the apparent insights of would-be wise persons of that amorphous community, civil society. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm confident that we do, however, have a good story to tell about many of the things that we have done and are doing since assuming the reins of office a year ago. And I'm going to use this medium to highlight some of the most important of them. I'd like to start this conversation with the sad scenes that were played out in many parts of the country some weeks ago in all the regional capitals of the country. Young people got up at dawn and formed long queues in stadiums and parks in the hope of getting a job with the Ghana Immigration Service. I know it is not a new story. Some 84,000 people applying for jobs, and over 47,000 of them meeting the minimum requirements as advertised, and the organization only looking for 500 people to hire. Similar scenarios are being played out in all sectors of the public service. The Ghana Revenue Authority also advertised for various categories of staff. Some 59,991 responded to the advertisement, out of which 20,177 met the requirements, and the available vacancies are 350. The recent recruitment exercise in the Ghana Armed Forces went along similar lines. Some 26,032 young people applied to be enlisted into the other ranks. 21,073 of them qualified and were shortlisted. The number to be taken to start training later this month is 1,800. This police service recruitment tells a similar story. Some 158,734 young people applied, and 71,999 of them met the requirements. And financial clearance has been given for 2,000 of them to be taken into the service. Once I started looking, I found similar stories all around. The grim story of youth unemployment has been a tragic part of our lives for far too long. When I became president, therefore, I knew my work was cut out. We had to do things differently if we were going to banish the specter of desperation and restore hope to our youth. We inherited an economy that was in distress, choked by debt, and with macroeconomic fundamentals in disarray. We had to do things differently, and those were my marching orders to all members of the government. We have rapidly to grow and expand the economy, and that can only happen when the fundamentals are in place. The economic management team has risen to the challenge and demonstrated that doing things differently achieves positive results. You would recall that throughout the election campaign, we said part of the reason for the difficulties with the economy was the sole sourcing of procurement by government. Let me give you a few figures to illustrate this point. In the year 2016, the Public Procurement Authority had 622 sole source requests. 579 of that number, 77 of that number, 98% were approved, and there were 25 rejections. There were 592 requests made for restricted tenders, and 587, 99.15%, were approved, and there were 5 rejections. A grand total of 0 savings was made through the procurement process. In 2017, our first year in government, 394 sole sourcing requests were made, out of which 223, that is 56.6%, were approved, and 171, 43.6%, were rejected. There were 346 requests for restricted tenders, and 167, 48%, were approved, and 179, 52%, were rejected. Now, here is the interesting part. The savings made over the year as a result amounted to 145 million cedis, $142 million, 1.8 million euros, and 22,400 pounds sterling. As my old mathematics teacher used to say, you cannot argue with figures, and such figures surely provide the incentive to open up government procurement. Our economists set to work to sort out our macroeconomic fundamentals and to find imaginative ways to deal with the oppressive debt situation. I'm glad to report that the hard work on that front is yielding positive results. Macroeconomic fundamentals have seen improvements through improved fiscal and monetary discipline. Real GDP growth has rebounded, recording a growth of 9.3% in the third quarter of 2017 against a figure of 3.5% for the same period in 2016. Latest information indicates that inflation is at 11.8%, down from 15.6% at the end of December 2016. The debt situation has improved, with the annual average rate of debt accumulation of 36% in recent years, declining to about 13.6% as of September 2017. As a result, the public debt stock as a ratio of GDP is 68.3% against the annual target of 71% for 2017 and end 2016 actual figure of 73.1%. Boring figures, I know, but believe me, they spell good news for the economy. Thanks to these boring figures, for the first time in a long while, we've been able to give better budgetary support to the constitutionally mandated institutions that hold government accountable, i.e., the Auditor General, Parliament, the Judiciary, the Ministry of Justice, the Commission on Human Rights and Administrative Justice, and the Economic and Organized Crime Office, EOCO, and the police. Thanks to the same fundamentals, thanks to the same figures, which mean improving in macroeconomic fundamentals, we have been able to transfer some 3.1 billion cedis of Tier 2 pension funds into the custodial accounts of the pension schemes of the labor unions, funds that have been outstanding for 6 years and about which the labor unions have been loudly complaining. I'm being urged to pay contractors. I am paying them. In 2017, nearly 1 billion cedi, of which the government of Ghana provided 300 odd million, and the road fund provided some 660 million, of the 1.6 billion owed road contractors was cleared. In January this year, we have disbursed 125 million out of the remainder of 600 million to the contractors. Additionally, we have paid 826 million of the 1.2 billion loan contracted by the previous administration, for which the road fund was used as collateral. It is important to note that all these debts were accrued under the previous administration. I will also point out that much of the statutory arrears that we met have been cleared. That is, debts to the NHIS, the District Assembly Common Fund, and the GET Fund. I might also point out that the salary arrears that were paid to our teachers last week were accrued from 2013 to 2016. The regimen we have in place now is to pay government bills as they come due and not accrue arrears. We are resisting the temptation to award contracts when funds are not available to pay for the certificates as they come up. Those who conduct business with government will find that things are being done differently. We've had to subject 8 billion cedis of arrears bequeathed to us at the beginning of 2017 to a process of audit review and validation. The audit service has certified payments to the tune of 5.5 billion cedis and rejected about 5.7 billion cedis, representing a potential savings of 51% on these outstanding commitments. This shows the validity of our criticism that so much of contracts awarded in the Mahama era were inflated and apparently in some cases non-existent. I have promised to protect the public purse, and I'm doing just that. Those who have done honest work and at honest rates for the government will get paid, and paid on time, so their profits do not get swallowed up in bank interests and thereby threaten the collapse of their businesses. Ladies and gentlemen, clearing up the mess we met is only a small part of the task we face. We are creating the atmosphere for the private sector to grow quickly and to encourage our young people to look for opportunities in areas other than the public sector. The solution to the unemployment crisis lies with small and medium-sized enterprises that employ 3, 7, 15, and 50 people, and also with large-scale industrial enterprises that employ 50 people in their hundreds and thousands. We're concentrating our efforts to grow the SME sector. Under the National Entrepreneurship and Innovation Plan, with a seed of fund of $10 billion, 5 modules are being implemented, targeted at helping young people who want to set up businesses. It is no secret that our private sector often lacks the expertise that would enable it to operate competitively. Practical help is being offered to SMCs by way of advisory services, access to finance, and access to market. We have set ourselves 5 main priority areas which we believe should rapidly transform our country and its economy: agriculture, energy, industry, education, and health. Reports indicate that the Planting for Food and Jobs campaign, which registered over 200,000 farmers in the 2017 crop season, has been a big success. I'm particularly excited about the institutional sub-programs where 20 senior technical high schools, National Service Scheme, and the prison services were supported to cultivate their own farms. Under the Youth in Agriculture program of Planting for Food and Jobs, 10,000 youth were supported to cultivate 800 hectares and 10,320 hectares of rice and maize, respectively. Under the campaign, average yields of maize and rice have increased, and our warehouses are filling up. Whilst the full picture of this success is yet to emerge, it is noteworthy that many farmers have expressed their satisfaction that for the first time in a long while, a deliberate government policy has helped to boost their harvest. We are doing things differently, and we're getting results. Ladies and gentlemen, I don't want anybody to get the idea that doing things differently is easy or popular, nor always get immediate results. We inherited a situation where illegal mining or galamsey had become a serious menace to the very existence of our country. Our forests and water bodies had become degraded, and the health of those engaged in the activity in their communities were all at risk. Let me state here again my gratitude to the media for the support they're giving in the campaign we're undertaking against galamsey. This is not a short-term campaign, and we need everybody's support to make a success of it. As I've said a few times, since the Almighty blessed us with precious minerals, there has always been and will always be mining in our country. We are not against mining, but we cannot accept mining in a manner that risks destroying our country. The reforestation program that we have started should help to regenerate our forest cover and water bodies, and hopefully provide an attractive alternative employment to galamsey. On this subject, all of us, and not just government, have to do things differently. In the energy sector, we brought stability in the place of the erratic power situation that we inherited, which we all called Dumso. Adequate power supply is critical to the operation and success of industry, especially small and medium-scale enterprises, which provide the bulk of employment. Not only is regular supply important, but competitive rates of power are equally important. Tariff rates for non-residential users of electricity, which embrace most SMCs, have been reduced by an average of 14% to boost their competitiveness. Furthermore, an industrial development tariff has been approved for industry to enhance its competitiveness. A new rate of $6.50 cents per million British thermal units, MMBTU, as against the previous rate of $8.84 cents per million British thermal units, has been established, a 26.5% reduction. In addition, a review of 24 power purchase agreements, which has led to the termination of 11 power deals and the rescheduling of 8 others, has enabled us to save the government treasury about $7 billion in excess capacity charges over a 13-year contract period. We also issued 7-year and 10-year CD-denominated bonds, totaling 4.7 billion CDs, which have halved the 2.4 billion energy debt we inherited and have helped improve the liquidity of the banks and the balance sheets of the SOEs in the energy sector. This year, we will consolidate these gains and ensure the flow of regular, affordable power to support the economic development of our country. Efficient management will always yield positive results. On the first working day of this year, I signed into law the 3 Development Authority bills and the Zongo Development Fund. Once the Zongo Development Fund and these development authorities are put into place, and this is imminent, we shall see an acceleration in the pace of developmental activity and the provision of essential social services to communities around our country in a manner that answers to the real needs of the people. Work on the creation of new regions is progressing, and the constitutionally sanctioned Commission of Inquiry, under the chairmanship of a respected retired senior judge, Mr. Justice S.A. Broby, has started the public hearings. I encourage all to bring their ideas to enrich the process. Some 38 new districts have been created, and with it, the inevitable arguments about where the capitals should be sited. I'm hopeful that things will settle down quickly and attention given to the exciting development opportunities that are coming with the new arrangements. Work is also progressing to make a reality of our manifesto promise that we will elect district, municipal, and metropolitan chief executives. Having signed on January 2nd the Act for the Establishment of the Special Prosecutor, Act 959, I have appointed Mr. Martin Amidou as the first person to hold that position. I'm well aware of the general sense of anxiety in the country and the strong feeling that politicians tend to get away with corrupt practices. A significant choice, though that Mr. Amidou is, I do not expect that he will provide all the answers, will deal with the phenomenon of corruption by public officials. But I do believe that at the least, the office will remove the fear of partisan prosecution and begin to put the fear of God in all public officials who are intending to go down the path of corruption. Just in case it needs reiterating, let me state again, the current office holders are as likely to be investigated and prosecuted by the special prosecutor if a case is made out against them as past office holders. At all times, the rule of law must be adhered to. This leads me to how we are dealing with allegations of corruption against current appointees. I've made it publicly known that anyone who has information about acts of corruption against any of my appointees should bring it forward and should be prepared to back it up with evidence. So far, every single act of alleged corruption labeled against any member of my administration has been or is in the process of being investigated by independent bodies, and the findings so far made public. From the allegations against the Minister for Energy designate at his parliamentary confirmation hearings, to that against the CEO of BOST, to those against the 2 deputy chiefs of staff, to the claims of extortion against the trade minister, and to those against the Minister for Special Development Initiatives, they have all been investigated, and no evidence has been adduced to suggest mildly the perpetration of any act of corruption. However, some people appear determined to stick to their politically motivated view that there has been corruption. This surely is not a helpful practice. It is important to note that in this, my first year of office, 2 separate bipartisan probes in Parliament have been established to inquire into allegations of corruption as against 0 in the Mahama years, despite the persistent calls by the then minority. I have a greater interest in my appointees not being corrupt than any critic could possibly have. Try me. Produce the evidence to back the allegation and see what the reaction will be. But I think it is also worth pointing out that we should be careful about the new trend that appears to be emerging, whereby any allegation, no matter how spurious, quickly gains the character of, quote, a scandal or, quote, an act of corruption, even when it is shot down. Ladies and gentlemen of the media, I should not omit from this accounting the disgraceful behavior of some members of my party, the New Patriotic Party, which has become known as vigilantism. I believe there is no longer any argument that criminal behavior wears no political colors and is solely to be dealt with by the police. I pray that we have seen the last of it. We are continuously working to ensure that it does not recur, that we uphold the rule of law. Members of the media, free senior high school is now a reality. The first batch of students to be enrolled under the scheme has finished one term and gone back to school after the Christmas break. If it has taken the introduction of free SHS to encourage media and other commentators to find the many problems that bedevil our schools, I simply take it as one more reason to cheer the free SHS. We shall work systematically to solve the problems, not just of the senior high schools, but from the kindergartens to the junior high schools as well. We shall put greater emphasis on technical, agricultural, and vocational training and skills training in general. We have no choice but to educate and train our workforce to match the needs of the modern economy of the 21st century. This is only possible if we prioritize and accelerate the development and application of science, technology, and innovation, and also develop the capacity to design and manufacture machines, parts, and tools for ourselves. The two ministries of education and environment, science, technology, and innovation are working together to step up the development and application of appropriate technologies to solve the variety of problems that confront us at this stage of our country's development. This is to be supported with a national strategy to promote science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM education throughout our educational system and stimulate the interest of our pupils and students, especially girls, in science, technology, and innovation. I'm still working to achieve gender parity, or at least reach the percentage promised in the MPP manifesto. In the meantime, I wish to encourage all to support the He for She campaign to help us achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goal number 5. After a year in office, it would be fair to ask what frustrations and regrets, if any, that I have. My answer would be, I wish we had been able to do certain things much faster and the entire government machinery move more quickly. Because, as I said, I'm in a hurry. For those who continue to be obsessed by the size of my government, let me, with due deference to the chairperson of the economic management team, my brilliant vice president, cite from his speech 2 days ago at Lagos at the opening of the New Year's school. And I quote, "The question that we should ask is how can you inherit a budget deficit of 9.3% of GDP, proceed to reduce taxes, bring down inflation, bring down interest rates, increase economic growth from 3.6% to 7.9%, increase your international reserves, maintain relative exchange rate stability, reduce the debt to GDP ratio and the rate of debt accumulation, pay almost half of arrears inherited, stay current on obligations to statutory funds, restore teacher and nursing training allowances, double the capitation grant, implement free senior high school education, and yet still be able to reduce the fiscal deficit from 9.3% to an estimated 5.6% of GDP. Quite simple. This is a remarkable achievement, and this is what we mean by competent economic management, unquote. It is that competence, coupled with integrity in the conduct of public transactions, ensuring value for money, protecting the public purse, that are going to bring the dream of a happy and prosperous Ghana, a Ghana beyond aid, quickly within our grasp. Thank you all for coming, and may God continue to bless us in our homeland Ghana and make her great and strong.
Thank you very much, President of the Republic of Ghana. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as I have said, we are not going to waste any more time. The President has to go to attend to other businesses of state. And so I'm going to set the rules and then go straight to allow you to ask your questions, if any. I can't impose questions on you. I'll be happy if you said no questions. In answer to your criticisms of last July, as I said, we've brought journalists from across our regions. And so I am going to do a balance between the majority of you based in Accra and those from the region, so we can allow people who have traveled from Sunyani, Takoradi to also have an opportunity. I'm going to be fair to the gender representation and allow for as many as men as women to ask questions. I'm also going to be fair to media houses that are not in, if you want, corporate networks. So if we have multimedia, we have EIB network, Ken City, etc., etc. We will not want, say, 5 or 6 journalists from the same multimedia company to ask questions. Because the other time, that also was our criticism, that at the end of the day, on a balance sheet, the majority who asked questions last time were from multimedia and EIB. We are going to answer to that criticism today. So please, be sure that we are going to be fair. So now, we are ready to ask the questions. You can show by hands, and then... And the last point is that please, ask one question at a time. One question at a time. Okay, I can see, I'll start from the regions. I can see Osagefo FM have their hands up. Osagefo FM, Mr. President, is from Mankesim. Mankesim, Osagefo FM.
Thank you, Your Excellency, Mr. President. Please, my name is Edwige Mfimafo from Osagefo FM, Mankesim. Sir, my question has to do with the Galamsey or small-scale mining as you were talking of. If you come to, especially the northern part of Central Region, Diaso, Dunkaofen, among other places, what majority of the youth there engage in is the small-scale mining. Now, the ban on that activity has been in existence close to a year now. We are hearing that this particular month, January, you are going to lift the ban. I would like to ask Your Excellency that indeed, is that decision still holding or we have something otherwise? And then, when you come to Mankesim, the Omahini of Mankesim traditional area has even met you and then told you that he'll be very happy if Mankesim could be used as the hub of vegetables in Ghana, since he has a vast land to give for that production, so that the youth there will also have some job to do with regards to planting for food and jobs. Mr. President, what are you doing to that? Thank you, Your Excellency.
Akufo-Addo, thank you. The lifting of the ban. Next week, the group that advises me and works with me is going to meet to review where we are and decide when and if the time is ready for lifting of the ban. So a decision will not be ready until after that meeting of cabinet next week. But let me say a few words of my own, and this are my own personal views. I'm not committing my advices, which is that I believe that the fight against the galamsey is by no means won. We still have a long way to go in putting in place the structures in terms of the training that is undergoing of small-scale miners, the Shafim and the excavator owners who continue to operate in the fight against them. All those are measures that we need to advance and intensify before we can say to ourselves that, yes, we believe that substantially we have won this fight and that therefore the time has come for us to lift it. I'm saying this because at the same time, some of the outcome of the galamsey menace in our country perhaps are not sufficiently addressed or articulated. The senior minister recently went on official business to Dubai, and there was met with the gleeful story that, oh, you people are doing very well. Why? Last year we recorded $7 billion worth of gold imports from Ghana, when the official records are talking about $2 billion. Yes, these are the facts. So that it's telling you that apart from the harm that this activity is doing to our country, much of the value that our nation should derive from these activities are also being criminally disposed of. So I'm aware that there are very large issues involved, employment for those who are engaged in it. All of these things are very much on the radar, and part of the policies that we're trying to roll out. But I think that we should all really be very clear that this is one fight that we cannot go and withdraw from, that we need to prosecute it until we can see an appreciable